Welcome to Unlock 360, the podcast for champions of public education. Here we explore the connection between leadership, teaching, and learning, and reveal the keys to getting better results for all students. Each episode highlights a change maker who's turning vision into action and creating schools where both educators and students thrive. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Wendy York Davoud. Here we go again. Another exciting first for you today. We have a superintendent from the great state of Illinois, Dr. Theresa Rouse, joining us of Joliet Public Schools, District 86 in Illinois. Welcome, Theresa.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you. And Joliet Public Schools is approximately the fourth largest elementary school district in the state, serving nearly 9,500 students pre-K through 8th grade. And in her role as superintendent, Theresa oversees strategic planning, budget management, curriculum implementation, and district-wide initiatives focused on equity, cultural proficiency, and student achievement. Dr. Rouse has also placed a particular emphasis on closing achievement gaps through comprehensive literacy programs, trauma-informed practices, and whole child learning. Again, Theresa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. You're making me tired. Oh, my goodness.
I'm sure there are about a billion other things you do. Theresa, will you share with our audience just a bit about your background that led you to becoming the superintendency in Joliet?
Absolutely. This is my 33rd year in education. I have been around the world and back. So I've been a teacher, I've been a site administrator, district official, county level official. I taught in Palestine for 2 years, 22 years in California. And, I was originally from the Midwest and I wanted to get back closer to home. I grew up in central Indiana, and this position here in Joliet opened up and was extremely attractive to me for a lot of reasons. Close demographic matches to what I was working with in California, but also we have junior high band, orchestra, and choir. And in California, we'd had to cut all of those. And the whole child side is really strong in my world. And as a musician, it's been the love of my life coming into a district where I went out and bought a violin and I get to play with my students in concerts and sing with them and play piano and just really help make certain we're incorporating all of the arts in what we do and not just the academics.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, that is true. There were many places that started cutting out some of those extracurricular or activities that may have been considered extracurricular, even elective type courses that are so important for the whole child and their development.
Absolutely. Yeah. Without those pieces, how do you learn with only half of your brain? It's like we have to have the whole brain engaged. And that to me is what the arts help us do.
Well, I can't say that I'm a musician, but I do enjoy dancing.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And you became the superintendent there in Joliet. What did you see as like a big priority or, kind of like a number one, we need to work on this?
Well, when the board hired me, they said they felt like the district was stuck. And they said, we just aren't really seeing advancement. We're not seeing innovation. We're not seeing us move. So they said, take this first year, let's figure out why are we stuck, and then help us move to the next level. So my first year, I did a lot of deep diving, a lot of visiting classrooms, a lot of looking at data to try to figure out what's happening. And the district, even in our declining enrollment stages, we still have about the same percentages when you look at the demographics. We're about 65 to 66% Hispanic Latino, 24% African American, and the rest white or other. So our major population is Hispanic Latino, but when you look at all of our data, our group that is not achieving or is showing up really high in the discipline data at that point were our African American students.
Interesting.
And so this is what led into our equity journey and our look at cultural proficiency, because when you think about 24% of the population of your schools is showing up 65% in the data of discipline, but yet the disparities were so large between even the Hispanic group and the African American group as far as achievement, there's some issues we have to look at. So we began a journey around cultural proficiency and really looking inside ourselves so that we could then turn and look outside ourselves to our organization and what needed to be adjusted and changed to better meet the needs of our students. and it's been quite the journey. This is my 10th year in the district, and we've really started to turn the ship, so to speak. You can't I'm not gonna say we're all the way there because you're never all the way there because it's a human experience. And
Right.
there's those pieces of growth that are still gonna be happening, but we're making some really good progress, in closing those gaps between the different groups. We still have a ways to go, but we're getting there.
Will you shed some light on some of the detail in terms of, what you discovered maybe wasn't going the way it needed to go in that area, and what are some of the things that you all have shifted?
Well, we've done a lot of training. So as during that first year, as I looked at all of the data, the achievement data, the discipline data, the attendance data, and then just the anecdotal data of walking around classrooms and watching, it's like, well, why is this student always in the corner over here?
Mm.
What's happening? And helping the training part, really looking at again who we are on the inside and how does that influence how we interact with others. That notion of cultural proficiency begins inside of us,
Mhm.
and we have to know our own biases so that we can then address things differently
Yeah.
as we look at those around us. It's been really quite the interesting journey with our leadership, with our teachers, our paraprofessionals, even the school board has gone through this training and have joined us on this equity journey so that we could really look at how we're responding to those around us, and really taking that step of personal challenge to change, and really address things in different ways. It's been interesting because people are like, "Okay, what's a white woman know about equity and diversity?" And I'm like, "Look, I don't know it all, but I do know that there are things we need to address." And I gotta tell you, the 2 years I taught in Palestine really opened my eyes in being, part of an oppressed group, and what does
Mhm.
that look like when you're on the other side of the coin, so to speak, and it really helped shift and change my approach to education, and coming back from there, was quite eye-opening and just, again, changed my world.
I'm really curious about that. What an experience. What led you there? And what were some of your big takeaways?
I was in between, teaching jobs, and it was back in the mid-90s when there was just this glut of teachers, and I had some teaching experience, and I couldn't get hired because they'd have to pay me more, so I was
Mhm.
substitute teaching, and it was so not fulfilling, and this opportunity came up. It was through I was a voluntary teacher in a school that was run by the Assemblies of God Missions Program. I was there to teach in English. Our student population was probably about 60% Muslim, and a lot of them, they had actually they were born in America, but their parents had moved them to the homeland so they could learn their home culture better, and our job was to help them learn English and get their academics up so that they could then move on to what was next for them, because there wasn't a lot for them there. That opportunity was so eye-opening about just the notion of different cultures and what's important and what maybe isn't as important. And, it's interesting because music is important, academics are important, that those relationships with family were critically
Yeah.
important. And so it was nice to be able to see and experience that in a different country and come back with just different realizations around who am I, let alone who are those around me.
Yeah, that just sounds like an incredible experience. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Going back to, your what you learned in your initial, here you are coming in, getting to know the district and where you were headed. You now have a strategic plan that drives your work, and a big part of it includes the cultural responsiveness and the equity work. Can you tell it like, has there been a moment when you maybe and there may have been more than one, but, like, an experience or a moment, a situation or example of a time over these past few years that you've really felt like, "Okay, this is taking root," like, something that happened where you could see the impact that it was having?
Just being able to watch our students and our teachers, just that interaction. Now, again, we're still not all there, but
Yeah.
watching the interactions, watching people stop and listen as opposed to assume, really hear each other versus making all those assumptions that people have around different groups of people. It's been quite eye-opening, I think, for not just our staff and our students, but even the families. I go and talk to community groups about what we're doing in the district. I speak at churches on Sunday mornings. People pastors will invite me to the pulpit to talk about what's happening in the district and how can they work with us.
Yeah.
And, I'm open to any opportunity to talk about what's best for children because that's why I'm here. And if we're not making good decisions for the kiddos, we're doing something wrong and we have to start over. But the community has been so welcoming. When I first came here, there were community members who were like, "Oh, you're at District 86," and they pat me on the arm, and I'm like, "Okay, what does that mean?" Right? But now we have totally shifted the perception of the district, and people are like, "What's happening in the district?" So much excitement and so much enthusiasm. We passed a referendum to build some new school buildings at a 72% pass rate, which is unheard of when you're talking people's property taxes, right?
Yeah.
But we're building 2 brand new junior highs to replace 2 of our old junior highs. It's absolutely amazing. We're doing on both sides of town. Everybody's gonna have access to these brand new buildings
That's
starting this
exciting.
August. It is hugely exciting. So the community has
Yeah.
really come around the district, and that change in perception has really helped all of us, and the school board has noticed it. They're just it's amazing to hear them talk about, "Well, this is what we're doing," as opposed to, "Well, we're not the highest achieving," and we're not, because 'cause we're not perfect. We still got things to grow. We still have things to work on. But the perception of the district makes people wanna work with us. I have community agencies calling us all the time. "Can we work with you on this project? We wanna support our young people in this way." "Absolutely, come on in. Let's
Yeah.
do it." And that partnership has been huge. But that perception, 'cause, everybody's perception is their reality. It's
Right.
like, we're not the second class citizen here. We're leading the way. That's the great piece of being in this district.
That is super exciting. And what would you say, and congratulations, by the way, that is huge to have that support, yes. What would you say are the other big rocks that you all are trying to move?
Well, let's see. Probably one of the other largest pieces is we are a high poverty district. And so when you are dealing in a high poverty area, the realities of what children bring to the table and what they don't have, trying to help everybody not look at them as what they don't have, but what do they bring. So keeping that mindset not on deficit, but on actual assets and what they have at the table. I mean, close to 60% of our kindergartners come knowing fewer than 5 letters of the alphabet. So we have a lot of catch up to do as they come into school. And our
Right.
teachers, our paraprofessionals, everybody's doing all that they can do to get that early literacy up so that we don't end up with achievement gaps later. There's that opportunity gap when they're young is what matters. We actually have a program where every baby that's born, there's 2 hospitals in our area. Every baby that's born, the family gets a bag of books with some information about why literacy is important
I love
uh,
that.
from our district, and whether they're gonna come to us or not, because everybody in the community needs to be focused on literacy. We work with the preschools in the area, the private preschools, and really trying to help them build some foundational skills so that they're not just babysitting, but they're actually helping the children learn while they're playing, because there is learning that can be done when they're playing when they're that young. So that kind of community outreach to really help build those pieces in play so that we aren't behind the 8 ball, so to speak, as they come to school. So poverty is a huge issue, and I can't change the fact that poverty is there, but the impacts of poverty and how we address working with our students, trauma-informed instruction, making certain that people know and understand that what a student is bringing to the table
Mhm.
isn't what the teacher brought to the table as a student, and we have to be okay with that and be able to work with our students. We have social workers in every building. We have a big emphasis on the social emotional learning of our students. We do a program with a company called Ripple Effects, and we have Bouncy, and Bouncy is a service dog. And this is the small plushy version of Bouncy, but there's an animatronic one that actually, when he breathes and the child's hugging Bouncy, they can feel him breathing.
Oh, I love
And he
that.
sings to them and talks to them about their breathing in English and Spanish.
Wow, that's so
So,
cool.
Bouncy, this becomes our talking stick in some of our leadership meetings. And so if you're holding bouncy, you get to share with everybody what's happening in your life, because I believe as leaders, we have to be that vulnerable as well. And, we hit tough times. We have challenges and we have to be willing to share those. So we'll pass bouncy around and we'll talk about I'll start. I'm like, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm struggling with today. And
Mhm.
here's how working with our leadership team or working with cabinet, we can make a difference. So there's being vulnerable is a huge piece in leadership so that we
Yes.
can be certain that people know that we're authentic, we're real, because we all have struggles. And it's okay. It's okay to come in my office, sit down at the table, have a few snacks. I've got some little gummies over there. No, not those gummies, but I've got fruit gummies, okay, we'll go there.
Yes.
And some little pieces of candy and things, and sit down and relax, and there's Kleenex, there's water. It's okay. Come in and be exactly who you are, because that's what we
Mhm.
need to be.
Yeah, I'm thinking of well, I'm a big Brown fan. Are you
Yes.
a Brene Brown daring to lead and her
Yes.
talks on vulnerability and authenticity and showing up and, yeah, really believing that we're worthy. All of that is huge, right?
Absolutely. Well, and the reality of helping in my aspect of helping female leaders, I help
Mhm.
male leaders too, but there's an aspect of female leadership that is different than it is for a male. I've had my a lot of my leadership team that are female read a book called Tripping the Prom Queen. And
Okay.
that is all about how in workspaces, we have a lot of the female rivalry and stuff that goes on, and it's
Mhm.
like, it's so unnecessary. We should be straightening each other's crowns, not knocking them off. So
Mm.
how are we supporting each other in moving forward? And it's made a huge difference in some of that competitiveness amongst females that we don't need to be competitive. We need to
Yeah.
support and build each other up. And we've got a great pipeline of teachers becoming administrators, moving on up the chain, and it's been fabulous to watch that happen. Just a couple weeks ago, I got to go to a person who's an assistant. She's been an assistant principal for a little while. She was a teacher when I first came here. When she moved
Okay.
into an administrative position, I promoted her to an assistant principal, and I got to go and tell her she's going to be a principal next school year. She
Okay.
almost started crying. It's just like it was so. She's that growth, that journey, being able to
Yeah.
nurture that. That's a huge piece of who I am.
Okay, a couple of things. First, I'm gonna have to add that book to my collection. I have not read that, but that sounds really good, and I have seen that more and more in the past it feels like the past 5 years or so.
Yes.
I don't we also know what happened, 5, 6 years, so I don't know if there's a correlation or any causation.
I think there's some, because we
Yeah.
became so individually focused during that time, during the
Yeah,
pandemic,
that's a good point.
and when we came back together, it was hard to come back together. We were collaborative before, but then we went into our own little cocoons, and in coming back out, it wasn't that easy for everybody. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been worse since then. Yeah,
Good point. I need to read that one. The other thing that, when you were speaking, I thought, okay, I want to ask about, you mentioned your leadership team. Can you share with us a little bit about who's on your leadership team and, what are some of the pieces that you all work on together?
absolutely. There's multiple levels. The full leadership team is about 95 people, and that's all of our site administrative teams, our district administrative teams, our special education coordinators, curriculum coordinators, everybody who has an administrative certification to work in schools. It's
Okay.
about 95 people because I've got 21 school buildings. So
Right.
we're
Okay.
busy. But then from that, we come down to the site administrative team, our principals, assistant principals, and what we call academic advisors, which is like the first entry level position as a teacher leader into administration. So those are people who are
Mhm.
very new at administration, they're learning the ropes, and if they find they don't like it, it's okay, you can step back and it's not such a big, disparity when it comes to salary. So
Mhm.
it's a nice incremental growth piece. At the district level, then I have an extended cabinet, which includes directors and my assistant superintendents and things of that nature. But then my closest leadership team is my cabinet. And there's a total of 8 of us. I've got assistant principals, I've got assistant superintendent, sorry, and I've got, a deputy superintendent, our chief technology officer, our director of communications, and our in-house attorney. He actually sits at the cabinet level and really
Mhm.
helps us as we're problem solving and working through all of the things that we're dealing with. And that is my close knit, and then it builds out from that.
Yeah. And in terms of teacher leadership and developing teachers so that they can, grow in their career and move into administration or coaching or, other roles that might be seen as, like advancement. And
Right.
how do you all develop teachers as leaders?
What you try to do is get them involved at committees at their site and then build those to district level committees. We actually have instructional coaches in language arts, math, technology, English, English as a second language, and our bilingual coaches. So we've got five
Mm.
different levels of coaching that occurs depending on what's happening out there. So you want to build them up into those types of pieces because they're starting to take on different leadership aspects. So the building leadership team at the site level. We have what we call safe and civil committees, which that looks at all the classroom management and how we're dealing with the structures within the in the school day, as well as our SEL work. Our social emotional learning is part of the safe and civil schools piece. The work then that builds into the district level, different curriculum committees. We have an MTSS committee looking at the multi-tiered systems of support that our students need. We've got groups that meet as social workers. We've got our nurses. We've got all these different capacities where people can build into and build those leadership skills along the way. There's also mentoring of veteran teachers and new teachers and how they're, using leadership in that regard as well. So there's a lot of opportunity if a teacher wants to step
Yeah.
into leadership. And we build that up and we watch over time and then they come join us in our leadership team and it's really fabulous. It's been interesting because the district I was in before I came here, I was in California. I had 2,600 students and 4 buildings. My leadership
Okay.
team consisted of about 15 people. So I came here, 95 people in leadership,
Yeah.
21 buildings. It was crazy.
A big
It
jump.
was a
Yeah.
huge jump. And I was just like, "Oh my god." But it's been fabulous all along the way.
I think that part of the secret sauce to really moving a system is creating these feedback loops where what one team learns is informing another team. The input of one system is the output, or the output for one system becomes the input for the next system. When you have that many schools and, they're not all right next door to each other, how do you build that collaboration across school sites?
We divide our school district into 4 quadrants because we have 4 junior highs.
Okay.
So, the elementary schools that feed to a junior high become part of that they're part of that quadrant. And so, the quadrants get together and support each other. We then bring them all together and support across the district. My assistant superintendents are all identified based upon different areas of work. So, I have an assistant superintendent of business. So, anything
Mhm.
finance goes through him. Assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction, assistant superintendent of equity and student services, and assistant superintendent of human resources and labor relations. So anything with any of that, we have 3 labor unions. So anybody, needing help in that regard,
Yeah.
go through HR. So the support gets stratified out in that regard. And the principals all know they can call any of us on cabinet. If somebody doesn't have an answer, they'll find the answer. So that notion of support is continuous, and
Yeah.
we're out in the buildings, walking through classrooms as often as possible.
That's fantastic. What are some of the challenges you all are facing? What are some of the pieces, the setbacks, the struggles? They're real. We know they're real. What are some of those for Joliet?
Well, number 1, budgetarily, there's challenges throughout our nation right now with the
Mhm.
federal education budget. We Nobody knows exactly what we're gonna end up getting.
Right.
Things are just dicey, and as the economy has gotten more challenging, it's become more challenging on state budgets as well. A district like mine, because we're high poverty, I don't have a huge property tax base, so I depend on state and federal aid for the work that we do, where some other districts have a higher property tax base, so they don't need as much state or federal aid. So it's kind of an interesting, conundrum when it comes to
Right.
watching what's happening across the federal and state levels when it comes to funding. And people like to say, "Oh, well, we gave you this money." And I'm like, "Yeah, you gave us that, but then you cut this." So there was no there was no extra. But we've done a good job in Illinois as far as funding education. We've really worked on what we call an evidence-based funding model, where we're trying to break the inequities across school districts as far as the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
That's been huge to help districts like mine so that it really is helping to balance the system out. So budgets are a number one issue. Another issue is the notion of trauma. We have had we there's in higher areas of poverty, you have different issues with violence. You have domestic violence. You have all those things going on. We have a high immigrant population, and we have had struggles over this last year with all of the interesting things with immigration
Yeah.
to the point of some people ending up kids getting left in a car and dad got pulled away. And the children then walk home because they are left sitting in the car with no adult and they need to go home so they can find safety. So there's been a lot of interesting pieces when it comes down to the impacts and effects of those social matters,
Right.
and trying to make certain that the families know it's still safe to come to school. It's okay. You come to school, they're safe here. Nobody's coming to get them. We're going to keep them safe. Making certain that we're safe on bus routes going home, making certain that we're safe walking to and from school or the parents dropping them off. So there are definitely challenges in the world today that I never thought we would have to deal with in schools.
Yeah, I know it's very different than it used to be.
Yes, they do exist. So those are some of the challenges that we face on a daily basis.
In part of that, you mentioned, making sure like kids come to school and feel safe to come to school. And that is a struggle that many districts that I work with and actually partner with, or, district leaders like you that I've interviewed and had on the show, you know, absenteeism, chronic absenteeism, those pieces were maybe even not great before the pandemic, got even worse, and then some are seeing that improve, but yet it still remains a big challenge, and some of these issues that you mentioned have exasperated it or caused, halted the progress. So where is Joliet with getting kids to school?
We do a pretty good job of that. We have some incredible partners who work with us as far as helping with home visits and really making certain that we're reaching out. And if there is a specific need that we can help meet, that we can help make a difference in that regard. We have close to, I think the last count was about 500 families who are considered unhoused, and so they have very special needs if they're living in a hotel or they're, or a motel or they're at a homeless shelter and what that looks like for them for getting back and forth to school. We partner with the Northern Illinois Food Bank, helping to send home food on the weekends to help for those who are struggling. A lot of community service agency assistance in that regard to help with that. But we have a really close relationship with our families, and for the most part, they know they can trust us. And it's okay if you're struggling, we'll help out. We'll do everything we can to help make a difference, connecting them with different service agencies so that they have what they need so the children can be in school. We keep emphasizing to them we want the students to be safe, we want them to learn, but they can't do that if they're not there. So, what can we do to help get them there so that they can learn and succeed so they can do better in their lives? And the families are really they're good partners in that regard. So, we've actually been able to reduce our chronic absenteeism rate over the last 5 years since the pandemic, in a pretty substantial way. We still have high numbers, but not what they used to be.
Good. You mentioned, really having strong partnerships with your families and many districts, in high poverty areas, serving students low socioeconomic status struggle with those partnerships. Are there any secrets that you have up your sleeve? Any specific things that you all have done to develop those relationships?
We have found really good success in using sometimes virtual parent university meetings because the parents can't always come in person to school. Sometimes they feel intimidated to come. Maybe they had a bad experience when they were a child, and so they're like, I don't go as an adult, but they'll jump on a Zoom meeting and they'll listen to a parent educator. They'll learn some pieces. We've built some really good rapport through Zoom, and then they'll start showing back up at school.
Oh, that's
They've
cool.
built some
Okay.
relationships, and parents love to come see their children perform. They love to come see, and we have children lead some of the family nights.
Yeah.
There's a math night. There's children that are leading the math night. So they're coming to see their child get to be a leader,
Yeah.
and they love to come and do that. So, there's ways to bring them in. We have an amazing art show every spring that is absolutely packed. We have to use 2 different school sites that are next to each other to spread the art out because there's so much amazing
That's
art. Our
so
kids
cool.
are talented,
That's
and
so great.
parents come and the kids bring grandma and Tia and Tio, and everybody is coming to see their art because they're on display, you know?
Right.
And our jazz bands are playing in the background, and it's like a museum opening. It's incredible watching them walk around and be able to see everybody's art and show off what they've done. But parents will come out when they feel safe to come out. So we work really hard in making certain that our schools are safe for daytime for the kiddos, but also for evenings when we invite the families to come.
That's great. I'm thinking about, the academic piece, and you mentioned early literacy development and thinking about what else, in terms of academics, what are some of the other pieces that you're juggling in Joliet to try to help kids do better?
Well, the pandemic forced us into a one-to-one situation with devices,
Yes.
which there's good and bad for that. I mean, there's always a good and bad, but what it has allowed us to do is to bring more literacy supports into the family, into the household.
Right.
Because they
Okay.
can use their device at home. We provide hotspots if they don't have internet access, so that way they can still access things. But some of the literacy things that we have our children doing are helping our parents as well,
Yeah.
helping them learn English through what their child is doing online. We provide everything in English and Spanish. We now are starting to provide more things in French and really are building up some of our other language supports. We have, last count, I think we have like 26 different languages with our students, and they range from here to kingdom come. I was surprised at the French language growth that we were getting, but
Yeah.
it's direct immigration from Africa, from parts of Africa that are French speaking. So it's been really interesting watching the growth of those different languages. But everything that we do now, we have the different things you can toggle to a different language. You can get all of your announcements from your school on your phone in the language of your choice.
Yeah.
So you set up
That's
your preferences
fantastic.
and it comes directly so that everybody has access then. So those pieces have really helped in building some of the literacy. The online software resources that we use, there's some great ones that and the kids love it because it's kinda gamifies the whole notion
Yeah.
of learning, and they don't even realize they're learning, which is fabulous. So, that's the good part.
Yeah. What else, Dr. Rouse? What else do you want to tell us about and share when it comes to the work in Joliet?
You know, Joliet is like, people told me it was like the biggest small town you'll ever wanna be in, and it has become such a great, gem for me to the point where even looking at retirement, I'm buying a home here, I wanna stay, I wanna be part of this community long term. There's so many great people here. It's just fabulous to watch the growth of this community, and the embrace of education that is here. And again, the perception shifts of who we are in this district in particular has been just so powerful. I mean, we're 26.4 square miles. Joliet itself is much larger. So there are addresses that are Joliet, there are other school districts.
Okay.
We're what's old Joliet. And so as the revitalization of old Joliet is happening, there's so many great things that I think are going to come for the district and come for the families. The city over the last several years has revitalized the old prison. If you remember the Blues Brothers in the Joliet prison, that's
Okay.
here. We're one of the beginning points of Route 66. There's a lot of history in this town
Yeah.
that really has gone untapped, but the old prison out on the east side of town has been in many movies, and it is set in disrepair, and
I'm gonna have to look this up.
the
Okay.
city has taken over and they do tours now.
Okay.
There's gonna be a baseball game in the yard of the old prison coming up. I mean, there's just the Blues Brothers themselves have been here in concert to be at the prison. It's really been kinda cool to see the growth of the community and see the community start to thrive again, you know? There's industrial towns have kinda lost as the economy crashed, and they're starting to find different ways to build themselves up. The city's going through an entire comprehensive plan process about development and what does the city want?
Yeah.
And that's been a great piece to be able to be part of that team moving that work forward too. It's an incredible place. I About 45 minutes outside of Chicago, so you can get to downtown Chicago pretty easily. Tons of things there, but there's tons of things here too. I always tell people, I'm like, "Don't miss the parks department." There's just so many
Yeah.
great things.
It's really interesting. Yeah, okay, as you've been sharing how things have shifted, I've been asking myself, "Should I tell her? Should I tell her?" And I've decided, "Okay, I'm gonna tell her." So, one of my very good friends, lives in west of Chicago,
Okay.
and I don't know right offhand what the name of the city is without looking at trying to figure out what her at St. Charles? Maybe St. Charles? Anyways, somewhere west of Chicago.
Okay.
Not too terribly far, maybe about an hour, and when I saw that you had booked to come on the show, I reached out, and she and I actually know each other because she was a technology specialist at the school that I
Okay.
got my very first teaching job at, in Houston, Texas, for Alief ISD, a very large, diverse district, and anyways, so Amy and I are really great friends. She still teaches there, and I reached out and said, "Do you know anything about this district?" And she said, "You know what? No, not really." She said, "I, you know, years ago heard that, they were struggling, had some, but I haven't really heard anything like that lately. I don't really have any." So I thought, I should tell you that. That's a sign, right?
Yeah,
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 that's cool.
yeah. Well, I mean, just Chicago is known for the good old boys and the gangsters and whatnot. There's actually a restaurant here in town. The historic lore is that it was built by some of the gangster population as a place for them to get away outside of Joliet, outside of Chicago, and it's hysterical because it's the old mahogany and the big booths that you can kinda hide. This could fit the old historic lore. So, Joliet has had interesting there's been interesting perceptions of Joliet over time, but we're shifting that.
Yeah, and I think that even I have some evidence of that, and
Yeah,
just a real
yeah.
casual conversation, reaching out to an old friend. So
It's all
that's
good.
wonderful.
It's all
Yeah.
good.
Well, and I have not passed through in a while. Did some work out in the Chicago. I don't even remember, it's been so long ago, which districts I worked with there many, many years ago, but did a little work there. I actually bought a cat from a groomer that lived in Chicago on a work trip and brought her back home all the way
I
back to
love it.
California at the time. But yeah, I haven't been in a while. But if I do get back up there in the area, I will have to check it out.
Absolutely. You're welcome anytime.
Teresa, where does someone go if they're looking for a new place to call home, a new school district to send their kiddos, or maybe they're looking for a new place to be, serve as a teacher or an administrator? Where can they go to learn more?
Our district website is www.joliet86.org. So Joliet 86.org. Everything about our district can be found there, including employment opportunities,
Okay.
information about every one of our schools, and all the great things that are going on. And
Okay.
welcome anybody anytime.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Awesome. Okay. And then, last but not least, this season I've been trying to end the show with just something that brings a little joy, a little bit of like fulfillment, and thinking about, so often, whether we are serving as a teacher or serving in a leadership position, people really have an impact on us, on our lives, on our careers, and we forget to say thank you or just to stop and acknowledge them. So, I want to give you an opportunity to shout out to someone that's really had made a difference on your life as an educator.
There's so many people,
Yeah.
so many mentors in my life, and, as far as those who have gone on, who still are there in the memories, and just you can feel them still with their hand on your shoulder.
Yeah.
One special mentor of mine, her name was Adrienne. She was the spark in my life as I became an administrator to really help shape kind of who I am as an administrator. She really had a huge influence on me. And here in the district, they tease me all the time for saying, "It's all good." And they're like, "Why do you say it's all good? Because it's not all good." And I'm like, "No, but think about it for a second." Because my Adrian used to always tell me, if you can and anything that comes before you, if you can learn from it, then it's all good. If you're learning, then even something that felt bad at the time, if you can learn from it, then it's all good. So having that more positive outlook on things, and I hear people saying it's all good all the
Well,
time around
good.
here now. I had a custodian make me a shirt that says it's all good, and on the back says Dr. Rouse, because it matters. We have to look at things from the learning side. We're educators. We're here to learn. So how can we learn from this situation that's in front of us? And as long as we can learn something, it's all good.
I love the meaning that you brought to that phrase. That is beautiful. Yes, and thank you to Adrian for having that impact. Dr. Ross, it has been a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself and about Joliet on our podcast.
I appreciate the invitation, Wendy. This has been great. It's fun.
All
Fun to
right.
share.
Well, that's a wrap, everyone. See you next time. Thank you for joining us on Unlock 360. If this conversation sparked new thinking, share it with a colleague and keep the dialogue going in your school district. Public education is complex work, and progress happens when leadership and teaching move together. I'm Wendy York Davoud. Until next time, keep building the systems that unlock what's possible, because strong leadership drives deeper learning.